Hi, and welcome back to another Tech Talk. In today's talk, we'll be introducing you to Accordance. We hope you enjoy.
Accordance is a Bible software program that really has two main features to it. So one side of it is the research feature of Accordance. Using Accordance for especially studying original languages, Greek and Hebrew, doing exegesis, word studies, things like that. And the other side of it is like a digital library that is all sorts of books and resources that you can have in digital format. Today, I'll be showing mainly focusing on that research aspect of Accordance. And really just to kind of give you a brief overview of the program. And in the time we don't have to go, obviously can't go through everything, but just give you a little bit of taste of some of the things that Accordance can do. Accordance has been around for let's see, 30 years now, and so quite a while. And started originally as a program for Mac exclusively, and then expanded, of course, to Windows, iOS, Android, all those types of things now. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So I'll do that here. Okay, so I think you should all be able to see my screen here now. And so there's kind of a few core things if you just wanted to get jumping into learning how to use Accordance. They're at the DTS library. A couple of core things that you'll want to know. And so those are the main things that I'll go over today. First, the Accordance opens up directly to the biblical text. So you're not going to hop in with a bunch of advertisements or different things like that. Let's just go straight to the biblical text because we're focused on offering a program that is easy to use, fast, and really focused on the text itself. So right at the front or top here of Accordances, you'll see the search bar. So this is where you'll do all your searching and things like that. And then, of course, below that, you have the text pane with the biblical text or whatever other text that you're studying. Let me also show to you the library real quick. So if you click on the library icon in the upper left corner up here, click on that library icon. This is where you can access that digital library that I mentioned earlier. So you'll have recently opened. So any at the top, any text or tools or books that you recently opened are up there. You'll have text right down here. So texts are Bibles, English Bibles, Greek and Hebrew texts. If you have additional other ancient writings and things like that, they would also, early church fathers, things like that, would also be under the text category. We have databases as well, like diagrams and syntax. And then we also have tools, so things like dictionaries, commentaries, lexicons. So pretty much everything else goes into that tools category. And so those get organized according to how you see that here. We've also got background as well. So we've got our Accordance atlas and timeline that I'll show a little bit of later. And then down at the bottom is my stuff. And so this is where you have things that you create yourself inside of Accordance. So whether it's user tools or user notes, so Bible notes that you make yourself on Bible passages, stacks are for saving information, papers are for writing. So all different aspects and resources, features, and Accordance that you can use to create your own materials. That's a little bit about the library, just to kind of give the overview of that. And at the top, you can search as well. So you can search up here if you're looking for a particular book in the Accordance library. Let's say if I close this down, I just search ESV, let's say. It comes up like that, and I just double click on it, and then it opens up there on the right-hand side. So that's the library, pretty straightforward. Let me also show you how to view some text in parallel, especially with original Greek text. So first, I'm going to go to a specific biblical passage. So I'm going to click right here on the search token. And with English, we have a few different types of searches. You can search by words, so search for English words. You can search for passages, verses of scripture. You can do a flex search. A flex search would be if you search for, well, let me just show you actually. So if I search for the word love, like that, then it's going to show you the word love wherever it's found, but also any related words. So not just love, but also loved, loves, loving, those types of related words. So we have that. We have a word search, which is just a particular word, and then we have a heading search. At a headings search searches the biblical text for all the headings of that particular translation. So like all the ESV headings in this example or something like that. So if I want to go to a particular biblical passage, I'll just go to verses here. And I'll also go to Luke chapter 10. We'll look at verse 29 here. And I'm going to expand the context a little bit. So I'm just going to click and drag on this context slider so we can see the whole passage there. And then if I want to open up other Bible translations in parallel to do some comparison that way, what I can do is click on the right-hand side over here. Is what we have the Add Parallel menu. So we have the search field, right? Remember that. And then if you go, the easiest way to find the Add Parallel menu is if you just follow the search field or search bar, go all the way to the right, all the way to the right-hand side, and then right below that is the Add Parallel menu. And so I can click on that, and I can go down here to Text, and here I can open up various Bible translations in parallel. So just to pick out a few that are in the package that the library has there. So you could open up like the Net Bible here and put it in parallel. You could also open up like of course, the Old King James. We have that. We have, let's say like the new NRSVUE. And then we could also put a Greek text as well. So the NA28, Nestle Aland 28th edition of the Greek New Testament. We can put that in parallel. So when you have all these texts in parallel, a few things that you'll notice is when you hover over a word, it will cross-highlight across all the various translations. So as I go over and hover each one, you can see how it's cross-highlighted, like here, the word justify. So in the ESV, the Net Bible, the King James, it's translated as justify. The NRSVU translates it as vindicate, so a little bit different there. And so you can see that, and then you can also cross-highlight with the Greek text as well. So it helps you kind of track along to see how the Greek word is translated into English word and how it maybe translate differently according to different Bible translations. So we've got that. You can also do the same thing with Old Testament as well. So if you open up English side by side with the Hebrew, also with the Septuagint. Let me show that real quick. So let's say I'll open up the ESV. I'll open up a new tab. Click on the plus symbol here. And let's open up the ESV here. And I'll open up the Hebrew text in parallel. Let's see, we'll choose this one here. And then let's say we'll open up the LXX as well. These will also cross-highlight across all three languages there. So English, Hebrew, and Greek in the Septuagint. So we got that cross-highlighting. And then, of course, as you scroll, all the different Bible translations will also scroll in parallel as well. So you've got all of that there. And then the other thing you probably have noticed is when you hover over a word in the text, you also will get important information down here at the bottom. And this is what we call our instant details window. So when you hover over a word like anthropos here, it gives you the parsing information. So masculine, singular, nominative, gives you English gloss or English definitions of the word. It gives you the Strong's number here from the NIV. It also gives you the lexical form of the word. So anthropos is the lexical form of the word in this case. You can also see that here, right? We've got the lexical form, and then we've also got the root forms as well that this word comes from. So all of that is put down there, the instant details information. So as you go word by word, all of that information pops up automatically for you at the bottom of the screen. And if you want to copy this information, like let's say this parsing information, maybe you want to copy and paste it into another document or something like that. What you want to do is, because normally as you switch word by word, it changes, right? But if you hold down the shift key, so just hold down that shift key and then go down here to the lower left-hand corner. If you click on the little instant details icon, so click on the instant details icon, or see the little clipboard icon right down there. This is where it says copy instant details. Click on that, and that will copy, and then you can go and paste it into another program or into another document. So this is again using the add parallels to be able to look at different Bible translations and the original text side by side. Now, let's say you want to do a word study on a particular word. I'm going to close down a few of these translations so we have some more space here. And let's take this word here for justify, right? It comes from dikaio. And so let's say we want to do a word study on this. What I can do is double click on the word like that to choose or highlight it. And then I'll go up here to the word study icon, click on that. And then I can look up this word in our word study feature. Let's say lexeme, I'll choose that. Now lexeme, for those of you who've had Greek before, you're probably familiar with this. Maybe if you haven't, lexeme is the lexical form of the word as it's found in a lexicon. The inflected is this particular inflected form. So dikaio when it's in an aorist active infinitive. And then the root form, of course, would be like we talked about, the root is which is what the lexical form and the inflected form comes from. Now, in our case here, we're just going to look up the lexeme or lexical form of the word. And so here it gives you a good bit of information about this particular word, and it kind of draws many different features of accordance and puts them all together in one spot, so you can get lots of information about your particular word that you're studying. So dikaio here is found 39 times in the Greek New Testament. It comes from dike is the root there, to pronounce righteous or to justify. And here I've got a excerpt from BDAG, so I can look up the word in my BDAG or whatever the default lexicon is for your accordance. You click on more, and then you can open up and read the entire article there on that particular word. Then you can go down here, the text compare. I like this text compare because it allows you to see how a word is translated in various English Bibles. So let's say if I click on the plus symbol right here, I can see the Greek, right? Dikaio to pronounce righteous, justified, but then I can also see how the ESV translated it. I can get the plus symbol again. How does the NIV translate it? And it's taking these Bibles from your library. So remember I showed you earlier the library where all the texts are. So it's basically just pulling those texts from your library. And so the KJV as well, we can look at the NRSV as well. So we can look at all those different translations. Now, let's say we want to go and find a specific example, right? So most of the time, across most of these translations, dikaio is translated as justified or justifies or justify, something, all similar terms. But let's say it was something like acquitted. Why would it be translated as acquitted in this particular example? Well, we can click on that from the list and see here, it comes from 1 Corinthians 4:4, for I'm not aware of anything against myself, but I am not thereby acquitted. It is the Lord who judges me. So here Paul's talking about his ministry, and in the ESV they translate it as acquitted, but it comes in the same idea of to pronounce righteous or to justify. And then you can get a look at the context and see. Again, I'll pull on this little context slider, slide it to the right, and then I can see, okay, what's the context? What's Paul talking about? Why would the ESV, why would they translate it as acquitted rather than translating it as the normal justified justify or justifies? And you can do the same with these others as well. So let's say, let's take also the Net Bible, see if the same example applies for 1 Corinthians 4:4 in their Bible. Click on that, and they also do that as well. So they also translate it as acquitted rather than justified or vindicated in that particular example. So this makes it very helpful to find those little examples where a particular Bible translation is translating a word, especially in unique circumstances, right? Because the context is always the most important thing when you're doing a word study and figuring out what is the definition or meaning of a word in a particular context, is looking at the context, surrounding context, and getting an idea. And this helps you kind of look at those specific, unique examples where maybe the regular translation is not preferred for some reason. So we can see that. We can also, if we go down in the word study feature, we can see a word pie graph. And this is to kind of give you the information that's up here in your text compare, and it shows it to you in a graph form. And so it's a little bit more of a interesting interactive kind of way to look at the text. So if I click on this little arrow right here, this will expand, and I can get a percentage breakdown and see what percentage of these different words, how they're translated in the ESV, like that. You can also use this in a presentation or something. So if you right click, choose copy picture, then you can paste that into a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. The bar graph, again, gives you the same information as up here. In the pie graph, it just gives it to you in a little bit different format. So in a bar graph format, and lists things out like that. And then below that, we have a frequency graph. So this will show you where this word is found throughout the Greek New Testament. And again, if I click on the little arrow right here, that will expand this chart out. I'll make this a little bit larger. And here we can see, okay, where is this verb used the most often in the Greek New Testament? Now, this is not necessarily pure number of hits, as in, the maximum amount of times the word is found or something like that, but it's where it's used the most frequently. So right here, Romans is the highest spike, and that's kind of, we would expect that, right? Because Paul talks about justification a lot in Romans, obviously, and so the word is used a lot there. It's also used in Galatians quite a bit. Again, we kind of understand that as well. And then also a few other times in different books, James as well, over here in Matthew. And you can actually hop or jump to these spots if you double click on the graph. So double click right here. Then we can see, okay, where is this word used in the Gospel of Matthew? Here it's Matthew 11:19, also Matthew 12:37, and then a few times in Luke's Gospel. So that kind of gives you a kind of overarching picture, right, of where the word is used, and allows you to quickly hop and jump to those particular parts of the New Testament or the whole Bible where that word is found. And then lexicons. So other lexicons that might be helpful, give you helpful information about this particular word. You can click on that, read the article on that word, then also grammars as well. So if this particular word is mentioned in a grammar or listed in a grammar, that will show up under grammars, and Accordance will automatically search inside of that grammar for the particular word. And then also theological journals. So if you have theological journals that are added to your library, added to the Accordance library, then Accordance will search the journal library, like here, Journal of Biblical Literature, and search for that particular word inside the journals. And so you can see where the Greek word may have been referenced or talked about in different journal articles. So that gives you kind of a picture of the word study feature. Again, it kind of brings different aspects of Accordance, puts them all in one spot, and then allows you to get information about the word and do a word study in that way. Okay, sorry about my voice. Just had to get a drink of water there. Let's go ahead and close this down here. And I also want to show you before we finish up, and then I'll just see if any questions that you guys have. So we looked at looking at parallel text. We looked at the library, looked at doing a little bit of searching, word studies. These are kind of just the core features of Accordance. And if I click on the add parallel right here, and we did that at the beginning to look at different translations in parallel. If you click on that, go to info pane, you can get a plethora of information about the particular passage that you're studying. So the word study is kind of bringing together many features of Accordance to study a word. This brings together various aspects of Accordance to study a passage. So commentaries, if there are any commentaries in my library that talk about this particular passage, it'll be listed in the info pane here. So I can just click on the commentary and it gives me the article or the reference on the commentary. Keywords as well. So key cross references are listed here. So you can hover over those. This is again something that's a huge time saver compared to using a hardcover Bible. So instead of flipping back and forth to find each cross reference, I can just hover over them. And then down here at the bottom, it gives me that cross reference so I can read it very quickly, see which cross references are relevant for the study that I'm doing and which ones may not be. And if I click on them, I can also get a larger view of the context and see why the word justification here is being used in Luke 16 as well. So I've got those cross references there. I've got topics. So if there's a particular topic that's mentioned in this verse or this passage that's important, I can click on it from the list here. So let's say something like self-righteousness. Click on that, brings me to an article on that particular topic. Commandment, if I want to go in that, read that as well. So any topics that are related to the passage will be listed here, and it takes me to a Bible dictionary article. The Gospel of Luke. So if I just want to get more information about Luke's Gospel, I can jump to an article on that. And then here, also the timeline and the atlas which I want to take a second to show. I'll go down here to verse 30. This is where Jesus is talking about of course, the parable of the Good Samaritan. If there's particular locations or important events in this verse, then it'll show also in the info pane through the accordance atlas and timeline. So like here, a man in the story, a man goes from Jerusalem to Jericho. Well, if I click on Jericho on the list, then it opens the accordance atlas. And let me again give this some more space here. Now the accordance atlas, we don't have time to show everything in it today, but it gives you a plethora of information, kind of showing you that geographical context for the biblical storyline. So here, there's different sites that you can see. You can see all these different locations. There's different geographic regions. You can choose, all sorts of different varieties of this, tribes of Israel, things from the Old Testament, New Testament Palestine, how that looked, things like that. For right now, I'll just kind of put no region so we can see the whole area easier. And then we also have here in red, ancient major highways. So those are shown here. If we zoomed out, you can see it covers pretty much the Mediterranean world, is how we've designed the atlas to work in that way. So, well, again, let's zoom in a little bit here. We jumped from Jericho to the atlas. And so accordance searches for Jericho inside the atlas. There's 3 Jericho locations here because you have actually the biblical Jericho, or the New Testament Jericho, the Old Testament Jericho, and then also modern day Jericho, which are all slightly different locations. But for our purposes here, let's look at this New Testament Jericho here. And what you can do, one thing you can do here is actually measure the distance from one location to another. So if I hold down the Option key, if you're on a Mac, it's the Option key. If you're on Windows, it would be the Alt key. So I'll hold down that, and then I'll click and drag, and then I can measure from one distance to another. And here, again, I'll always take a look down the instant details window at the bottom. It's kind of like always your friend there at the bottom. It gives you helpful information. Because if you hold down that Option key, drag like that, then you can see it's about 14 miles or 22 kilometers. Now that's not following the road exactly. If you follow the road exactly, you can actually click. Every time the direction changes, I just click with my mouse or trackpad, and then you can kind of follow the road along very exactly to get an exact measurement of how far it is here. So 14.1 miles, 22.7 kilometers, and back then that would have been like a day's journey. So it'd take all day to walk from Jerusalem down to Jericho. And then you can also get kind of like a 3D view of this section of the map. So if I click and drag and make a box like that over a section that I want to highlight, I'll go up here to this little icon up here, this little map icon. I'll click on that, and then I can go to here, Auto, and then Accordance will open up a 3D picture of the selection of the map. So I can zoom in like this and get a picture of the 3D terrain of this part of Palestine. And so I can see, if you look at this, you can tell up here at the top is Jerusalem, this black dot, right? And then the road goes down from Jerusalem down into the Jordan River Valley down to Jericho. And so when Jesus tells the story, a man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. That is not just a figure of speech, but it's actually literally, you go to Jerusalem, higher elevation, then you go down into the Jordan River Valley down to Jericho. And you can kind of get an idea of what the terrain would have been like as you make that journey. So this kind of helps the biblical text become a little more alive, right? And it allows you to kind of get an idea of, like I said, that geographical context of the passage that you're studying. And also, if you go back up here to the major highways, you can choose different animations here as well. So we don't have time to go through all of them, obviously, but something like the Exodus, and the Accordance will draw here the route and show you what are possible routes of the Exodus. This one gives you, I think, 3 different possibilities that scholars have discussed could have been the actual route of the Exodus. And so there's that. There's a number of different animated routes from the Old Testament, from the New Testament as well. And so they're all listed there for you. So that's the Accordance Atlas. Again, main thing is the biblical text, and then we're jumping from the biblical text into those other resources. So also the timeline as well. So if I want to say, when was Christ's public ministry? I'll click on that. And then I can get to the accordance timeline. And the accordance timeline is kind of paired with the atlas in the sense that the atlas gives you that geographical context, and the timeline gives you the historical context. So what else was going on at what else was going on at the same time as the life of Christ? So, for example, how long was it from when Jesus was in the temple until he started public ministry? Again, if we hold down that option key, just like we do with the atlas, hold down the option key, we can measure from that until his public ministry. So about 20 years there from those two things. Or any of these other things that happen, right, around the same time. Uh, after the life of Christ, all these adventures in the book of Acts. But then if you zoom out, you can get also a picture of not just what was going on in Israel and Palestine at the time, but then also Egypt as well, Africa, go up here to Syria, Arabia, Mesopotamia, Persia. So it's expanded. So it's not just the section of Palestine or Israel's history or something like that, but it's ancient Near Eastern history in general and Mediterranean history. And then recently we expanded even more, so now it includes church history as well. So now it's become not just a biblical resource, but a resource for church history. So anything in the timeline here, you can get a good idea of what events were going on at that particular Bible passage that you're studying. And anything that you click on in the timeline, it will give you a brief definition. If it's something that's mentioned in the Bible, it will also give you a scripture reference as well. And so then you can click on that to jump to the biblical passage that talks about that event. And so the other little thing too I like to do is if I click and drag over a section up here on the years, the year count. If I do that, let's say 2080 to 40 AD, and then it actually gives me over here on the right-hand side, it actually will list out to me what was going on in different parts of the world at that time. So here in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Rome, Italy, Greece, Persia, Arabia, Israel, of course, Egypt. And so I can get a quick look, okay, what's going on in the world at that time when that event happens from the biblical story. Okay, so we have that. We also have a word list as well. So if there's any important words that are mentioned in this passage, I can search for those very easily. Parallel passages, this is very helpful if you're studying passages in the Gospels that have parallel events, right, or are reported in multiple Gospels. And obviously the Good Samaritan is not one of those examples, but obviously there are many stories in the Gospels that are reported, especially in all three synoptic Gospels. So those will be listed here for you. Study Bibles, grammars, if any of this passage is mentioned in study Bibles or grammars, apparatuses, those will be listed here in the info pane as well. If you add things like specific Greek manuscripts, Greek images of manuscripts as well, you can also look at those in the info pane and compare those. So all those things are brought together in one spot there in the info pane for you to allow you to study these things as you're studying the passage that you're looking at. So I think that kind of gives you a good overview of some of the main features of accordance. There's a lot more, obviously, that we could talk through and go through, but I think that gives you kind of like a good start and talks about some of the main features of using it. And if you have other questions about accordance or things, if you write to schools@accordancebible.com, those emails come to me. So schools@accordancebible.com, and I'll be happy to help you with any questions that you may have.
We hope this information was helpful. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next Tech Talk.